Finally, we have the money, and we have the first 12 resilience plans for the 750 billion for Next Generation EU. The Commission had said, okay, the member states now have to check, but the money will flow after a long time. This is what we want to talk about, the national recovery plans and what can come out of the whole thing with Michael Hager. Now, before we start, I go back to Wiesbaden for Mr. Weinmeister, who will talk to us. Welcome to another meeting in the representation in Hessen and in Brussels. We have a very nice guest, Mr. Hager, Michael Hager, the Executive Vice President of the Commission, Mr. Dombrovskis, and he will speak about Next Generation EU. This means that we will listen to him, and I'm very happy that we also have Mr. Kafsack as a facilitator who will ask questions to Mr. Hager. The European countries decided to have 750 billion that will go into this program, Next Generation EU. A big part are loans and another part is in grants, but the basis is that the European countries look exactly what they can spend the money for. 672 billion euro from the 750 billion go into the resilience fund, and it's very important to see which points are very important for us in the next few years, because they have to be financed. We have, first of all, the Green Deal and then the Fit for 55, and on the other hand, the question about digitalization and how we as Europeans will follow the international market. Now, the member states should present their plans. Almost everybody did. Only a few of them are missing. The Commission checked everything, and the first positive reactions already have been sent, and I'm very happy that Mrs. von der Leyen on the 22nd of June was in Berlin in order to give the green light for this resilience plan. And the member states are serious about these points. The points or the minimum of money that is foreseen for this sector has have had higher numbers, and this gives us the courage, and we are looking forward that we go forward for a modern union, and therefore I'm very keen to hear what Mr. Hager is thinking about all this, and I'm very happy to follow this meeting and hope you will have an interesting debate. Well, we are back in the representation of Hesse in Brussels in order to talk about Next Generation EU. Many people are talking about the recovery for Corona Recovery Fund. We have here the Vice President head of Cabinet of the Commission. We are talking about different topics, and I have to say you are here since a long time. You already worked for other commissioners. One of him, Mr. Oettinger, who is now doing different things. As always, you can ask questions. I will just mention that. You can send a mail, which is 32. You see both of them. So it's 472-0301-81. 750 billion euro are in the fund. The biggest part is for the resilience plans of the member states. The first 12, if I'm right, had already the green light from the Commission. Everything was going quickly and without big problems. Did the Commission really check where the money was going to? The money hasn't been spent yet, but the whole process. In the last year, we had the big meeting, the big summit, 5Ds of the heads of states and governments, and they agreed upon it. It took some time. COVID is not finished. We are still in a crisis. We have the effect on the societies, on the member states, so a reaction is necessary. But it took some time, first of all, to have the regulation in order to discuss and to define the conditions in order to have everything in place. And then, you already said it, the 12 plans we had in the last few days in interaction with the member states that should guarantee that what is proposed should really be helpful. And I can tell you, we have looked at it in detail. But which was the most important interaction? Because in the first part we had some proposals, there was an exchange, and then there was a final plan that what was supposed to be in the end of April. As far as I know, Bulgaria, Malta, and the Netherlands are not ready yet. After this first phase, after you receive the plans, where there is still an exchange with the member states, did the Commission ask to change several things, or did they do what they were supposed to do? No, the interaction is something that continued even after we received the plans. What we first discussed were the structures, which elements should be inside this, and what the member states should propose. And then we had a tuning afterwards. We have the different targets and the costs, the opportunity to check everything. All this is a huge element, and now the green elements. All this is requiring a lot of work, and this interaction has been done during the whole period. And there were some let's say, adjustments, and the Commission never said, not like this, you should review everything. Well, this is a question of diplomacy, but we had some cases where we had to be quite clear. Also in the direction of Berlin, just to ask the question for one country. Well, the German proposal was solid. Obviously, not everybody was clapping hands, but it was well done, covered what had to be covered, and you can still ask the question, how can we improve in the different elements, in the different criteria that have to be covered, and there we had some exchanges. Now, we have critics on many of the plans from different sides, but let's start with climate and digitalization, points that are very important. 37% for the climate, 20% for digitalization, and now everything is done as it should be done. But when we look at these measures, we are questions that are popping up. Has the Commission been a little bit too generous in all that? Well, this is something related to credibility, especially in the green part, in order to let go everything that might be slightly green wouldn't be helpful for us. And therefore, had a strict look on it, and the question, the tagging, where you give different attributes to the different parts of it, green, half green, and then you relate it to the 37% that are foreseen. There might be criticism, but I would say we were very correct and checked what the member states are doing even after the project started, and the 37% was very often they got higher numbers. Most of the member states are really above this measure, above the 37%, like hybrid cars in Germany, gas for heating in other countries. Is this something really reasonable? In the eastern countries, we have a lot of heating with coal, and therefore gas is something really that helps to reduce CO2. And obviously it's not 100%, but to a certain percent it is green. And if this helps us to reduce CO2 versus 2050, then it is an important element. And then on the one hand, we have the climate and the digital part, and then we have to ask the member states what is counseled from the semester. This was a reform of the pension system. This is not in the plans, and this has been taken very positive from the Commission. It's not to have a one-to-one relationship or being really 100%. It's the important elements. The plans are liberal. They are presented by the member states, and what the member states write in it is their idea and their approach. And we looked if this was substantial. Does this cover the recommendations for the different countries, or are there many things lacking as far as the pension reform is concerned that we would be in? But what was mentioned is the digital platform that gives us transparency and gives also the people the possibility to see what kind of pension they will receive. These are elements that help to maintain sustainability. It's not the big shot here, but we have to be honest. In the next few weeks, we will have re-elections. If we now write what has to be done, then this would not be working. To have an exact application is one thing. If it is similar, if I have a platform for transparency, then we are really far away from the pension reform. Let go people who are living together and they have a splitting. Now, what kind of signal is this? We have a European semester. This has a big importance. That is something you can forget, especially if you were talking about Germany. What signal is going to the different member states? Well, I guess it's important that we have fairness, treating everybody at the same level. And if we see, or at least the 12 we had analyzed, if we see them next to the recommendations, only few of them have 100%. Some of them have some things lacking, and what I do not ask from Germany, I can't ask from other countries. It has to be substantial. It needs to cover the recommendations, but it must not be point per point the same. And France, for example, they don't have the pension reform either. And you said that some of them were really considering it and mentioning it. Some of them, yes, in their reform plans have one-to-one what they have also in the country recommendation. And this is due to the member state. And if this covers what we want to see, what can us lead ahead, if this is working, then this is positive. Do you have one favorite plan in all the plans you have received? Is there something special? Well, you always have to connect the starting position, the administrative capacities of the countries, which is the political will, which are the conditions, for example, where we have elections, then things might change. Well, yes, there are plans that are really good. Greece, for example, they have a lot of elements in their plan. They had a good counseling. Everything worked fine. Others were quite good, and you also need to see which aspect is the most important for us. Some of them are very active in the green part. In Germany, they work a lot in the digital sector. Now, the mix with the different elements that is important for the member states is normally well covered, and there are some that are even better. Well, I can say apart from Greece, we have Slovakia. They have very good elements in it. But we shouldn't have now a context where we see somebody was good and somebody was less good. We want to be better after the crisis, and there the money is working. And there it is also helpful when you exactly know what you do and that have to be available to be checked. Just to come back to Greece quickly, Greek is often mentioned as a good example, and everything has been done in a non-political way. They have counselors. What is so special about this plan? Now, I wouldn't say it's that special. It's well done, and counseling is helpful, but also the political will to use this money in order to have the right reforms. This has to do with the political situation. It's not an election that we will have tomorrow. There are opportunities to sell these reforms, and with the investments, they can also do several things. They can leave coal, the old-fashioned energy providers. Now, to go in the other sector, it's see if we have a look at France from Germany. We often hear it's a refinancing of the already existing plan. The idea has been that with this recovery fund, we do something new in order to have more resilience. And I can't do this if I'm refinancing what has already been decided upon last year, which is also going back to Germany because it's similar. So is this not a wrong way to approach, a wrong approach, let's say? Well, we finance, or we want to finance, what has what happened in the crisis, February 2020. And you can do that, sure. In the ideal world, it would be better to have new, fresh things that are looking into the future, but it's not like the French or German plan doesn't have these elements in the plan. There are several elements that are new, fresh, and really looking into the future. And I guess the mix that we have in this context is good. And I don't think that it would be helpful to see on the one or on the other side and compare this. Every member state and the plans for every member state should bring what this member state needs. And in France, as far as the expenses are concerned, we have reform plans that will be helpful. And on the German side, we have interesting investments on the German and on the French side, the cross-border projects that have been made, which is the European point in the whole thing, hydrogen, microprocessing, and so on and so forth. And there we have elements that are really a good model. And I will not talk about every single country, that wouldn't be okay, but just to look to Italy, because Italy, apart from France, is considered a country that is not able to have good reforms, where since years should do something, and now has a government that is not has some technocrats at least at the highest point. What do you think about the Italian plan, the resilience plan? Well, the Italian plan is very good and covers what we wanted to see. The country recommendations that were a bit longer in Italy than in Germany, and these things are really covered. And what is important, and I guess this is a very important point in all plans, is defining the goals and checking the goals. And it's a question of the political culture, how these reforms can be applied in the member states. If this is getting longer, then we will lose time, let's say. Just right now, the plan is fine. The elements that Italy needs is in the plan, the reforms that they need that, but now it's important that they start with everything.
Milestones dann, die gesetzt worden sind, praktisch.
And this is where we bring in the milestones and ask a question as well, whether the Commission at the end of the day will have the courage, the strength and the willingness in doubt to say not reach the objective, bad evaluation, try again. I will not talk about the Troika experience with Greece in these former times, of course, but still. Well, I think it must be in everybody's interest that this is really credible implementation here, and the whole project will really be linked to the necessity to have good spending of the money. When objectives are reached, then the money is spent or will be flowing. And if we have a look at the individual plans and the annexes where detailed indications are given, what has to be reached in order to let the money flow, well, there's not a lot of possibilities here when these boxes cannot be marked as reached. We will not allow a payment. At the end of the day, we would say, well, for 5 projects, we have reached the milestones and not for 2 others. And then proportionally, what the 2 do not have has to be held back. And I think this will happen as well. But the interest of the member states is to get the money, so the political process to the implementation of legislation and then milestones and targets for investment projects, they have to be reached. And this will happen twice a year, this verification. That's right. So next year, when for the first time exactly? Well, it will depend on the moment when first payments were supposed to be taking place. Pre-financing is existing already, maybe before the summer even. But the verification in a half-year rhythm will take place. Okay, then. And then we will indicate the results at our next meeting here. Okay, let's see how much will be made possible and paid. So member states have 1 month time to confirm the Commission's decision or to have a little fight amongst each other. So that's not really feasible. Well, here as well, the Feedback to national parliaments is a thing, and the question how the individual member states will be handling these funds. This is a very important question, of course. And what's interesting in these discussions, not only in the council groups, but also in the public discussion, is that there will be a very precise verification. But in the discussions taking place until here, for first plans, Portugal, Spain, were from no member state. What this is happening behind closed doors, but I heard from no one that, no, this doesn't work at all, or these are the main work sites that are still open. No, it's rather about having a look, checking again the precise formulation and fine-tuning it, but until now it looks good. And neither from the Dutch side, when we think of Mr. Rutte last summer when he insisted that there should be a veto right in case of doubt. So in the practical implementation, we don't see anything like that. No, there's no evident points of criticism where this would be necessary. Do you have a look at the Dutch plan as soon as it arrives with specific interest and scrutiny? No. We'll treat everybody the same way. And some are more equal than others. That's it. Let's leave the individual plans and talk rather about fundamental questions that are still, and again, being mentioned. Mrs. von der Leyen has been traveling across Europe with her money purse in the different capital cities in order to announce, respectively, the acceptation of the plans. She indicated quite clearly where the money is coming from, and so the impression was that it is her traveling around indicating that the Commission is doing something good here. But is the Commission willing to give away this power it got from this funding, to give it back one day? So then, or will there be a Next Generation Fund 2.0? Well, we have the legislative basis for the one thing, and it is really a unique recovery facility. It's a one-off, and this is based on the treaties. The limits are in there. Article 122 indicates what the possibilities are here. The debate has taken place beforehand. I remember when we had the proposals for the MFF being presented. We did have these ideas as well, the budgetary instrument for conversion and competitiveness, so a precursor, if you like, or nucleus of the whole thing here. There was a debate about the stability function and so on and so forth. Obviously, this debate is being continued, but what is clear as well is that what we've been creating here last year with a lot of pain and long hours during nighttime work is an instrument of solidarity, which exists now, but it's a one-off thing, clearly. And now we have to see whether this is being successful. Is it working? You mentioned the points. Where's the control? Where are things that can be connected here? Where do we have to adapt and fine-tune? Are we strict? And are we getting the long-term results that were envisaged initially? If that's the case, well, the debate is open. It was opened up beforehand and will be open after as well. So this uniqueness is between brackets then? No, this is really unique. Again, what's in the treaties doesn't allow anything else, by the way. But what we have here, well, it has been adopted as something unique. There's no opening clause to make this a permanent instrument, meaning if there should be an intention to do so, the treaties would have to be amended concerning, according to you. Yeah, and there had to be a consensus allowing to transform this. And it has been difficult enough already just for the unique and one-off element. And there's others questioning this one-off character of the instrument. So the debate is not only opened up, but it's on. Well, it's been on for a year. Well, it's not getting hotter and hotter. No, I wouldn't say so. And we have elements here where we have to slow down things, and the debate has to be cranked down to a reasonable level. To say now, well, we need RAF 2.0, whereas we didn't even start the spending, well, that would be way too early and not necessary, really. What we have now is a project, and we should really get it going and see whether it's working and successful. And what we've been doing here with this connection between reform elements and investments, the order of magnitude, the question of country-specific recommendations, where do we have the real work size in the different member states, well, all these elements are promising actually a really good perspective in this direction. But at the latest, at a point where we were talking about refunding, so repayments, will there be a discussion again about continuation of the instrument? Well, it's presupposed now that will be running smoothly and that the EU will get own funds again, allowing to repay all these debts, and that there will be no financial problem due to this. There's diverse ideas, proposals will be coming on the 14th of July together with the climate package, and there's a digital payment as well. There's a certain skepticism when asking whether at the end of the day these will really lead to major incomes, meaning don't we get at the end of the running financing period to a case that if we want to repay these debts as foreseen, well, the budget will have to be reduced massively for the next period, or the debts will have to be run over. Yeah. Well, part of the deal last year was to talk about this matter of our own funds and to ask the Commission to submit proposals in that sense. We will be doing that. We will fulfill this obligation, and this will be talked about with the member states. We will have to see what will be remaining of it at the end of the day, and we will have to see what the specific details will be. But the elements are there. And in ETS, so account border adjustment mechanism, so this border payment, digital payment is one of the elements, and other elements are supposed to be verified in coming years. Repayment will not be taking place from tomorrow onwards, but only in a few years, and will be spread over several years and even decades. To talk now about a rollover of debts is really too early. We first have to have a look at what own funds will be coming together, and this whole bouquet of proposals will be brought up and retained, and this will be very sufficient to cover all the needs for the initial repayments at the beginning of the next decade. Even when the CO border mechanism CBAN is inserted until 2035 for raw materials, 1 billion has been mentioned. Even if we need ETS in order to finance social funds, to have precarious households being financed, and even if the digital payment will not be exactly on an international level as hoped for initially, will that still be sufficient for all the refunds? Well, in this bouquet, we have the flowers that are blooming already and the smaller ones that will be blooming afterwards. To indicate right now that all this is not working is really too early. We'll have to have a look at the respective results here. CO2 repayments as a compensation. This is a pilot project, but the idea is to extend this to other sectors as well. If we will have it one day, there will be money flowing in. We need a little bit more than 15 billion yearly, on a yearly basis from the beginning of next decade onwards, and this is realistic, but the member states have to play along. Well, this leads me back to the first question. It's really a pity I didn't get it at the beginning, because it's a wonderful initial question from Brigitte Langenhagen, a former member of the European Parliament, and my former boss. All the more a matter of interest. Well, best wishes to Copenhagen, yes. Well, open question, actually. It would have been a perfect initial question. Who is the next generation? And actually, in this whole context, is a really interesting question, because the whole project is called, in Commission slang, NextGenerationEU. A lot of people are saying that next generation is meaning that we will have to pay back in the future. Well, what we do have in these projects and programs, these recovery plans, is really calculated on a long-term basis. It's not only that's supposed to help us today, we have other instruments for that, short-time work money, other formulas. Launched last year, we have state subsidies. These short-term elements have been covered, all of them. But with this recovery and resilience facility, all this is oriented towards the future. Digitization, green transformation, this is really about the future. This will be an advantage for the next generation. And I think in training, all these elements mentioned here, well, the future aspect has been indicated quite clearly from the start. And yes, this is an instrument that is taking up debts, and they have to be repaid, and this will concern the next generation as well. But if we lay the foundations today to have this clear in the future, this will be easier in the future as well. Other way around, are we you for the debt brake, Schuldenbremse in Germany, or not? Well, if you call it a brake or a hindrance or side cover, well, we need certain rules how we have to settle this. What we can see now, divergence amongst the member states is not only concerning Germany. This is really a major element, and I think that the feasibility of repaying the debts and the sustainability of it all has to be thought about. We have low interest rates right now, and it's okay, but maybe this might shake in the future as well, and a change is possible here, and we have to be prepared for that as well. Meaning that, according to your interpretation, the EU is still working in this whole setup. Other people would certainly have a different analysis here. Well, this is quite complicated and diplomatic as a formulation, so I would have to think 3 minutes about that now in order to know what exactly you are telling me with that. So this is a test question. If we say that invest into the future, we invest in climate protection, digitization in 20, 30, 40 years, this will be favorable for people. So it's all the more important that we do have a success in this area. And if I have a look at the different projects of the EU and the structural policy, the promises were made and objectives mentioned and reached only partly. In such a context, can you understand that there's a certain skepticism as well in Germany concerning a certain clientele to know whether this will be running that smoothly and really be in the sense of the next generation, as it says? Well, skepticism is always a good point. But if we have a look at the regulation, have a closer look, talking about the things that have to be put up as criteria, as crash barriers as well. We have to see how the Commission will be talk about these milestones and targets as mentioned. If we show our teeth here and indicate clearly what's being allowed and what's not. But I nevertheless think that, yeah, this is a question of the upcoming years to show this clearly, but the fundamental question have to be laid to have a success story possibly here as well. For structural funds, we see success stories as well. If we have a look at the development of the new member states, for instance, it's huge what has been made possible in the last 15 to 17 years. I think this is really a success story as well. What do you think about the situation on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean and see the funds and the sums being mentioned to have the economy recover and launch against and implement projects? Are you a little bit envious? Have a look at the huge sums that are being mentioned there? Or is this rather, well, kind of the most expensive player of this European football championship has missed his penalty. So it's not only about the money. And what the Americans have been announcing without all these criteria, without a uniformity in elements based on the regulation and all the crash barriers that have been put up as guardrails, if you like. And so just to pump these huge sums will not be sufficient to have recovery and resilience being made. I think we have a better approach, a more intelligent one. they have just a figure with a lot of zeros is not enough. So rather smaller but efficient and targeted. Well, I would not mention this fund small. It's not really small either. It's huge sums as well, if you have a look at what we've been having until today, and the European budget as well, spread over 7 years, and what is being brought up with this 750 billion again. This is really a clear signal to the outer world. So I'm just asking because some economists who have read their Keynes and others get really starry eyes when they have a look at America, and they think that in the Commission there's rather Keynesian schools being studied and not others. Well, we have others. Gentilionis and Dombrovskis can be mentioned here as well. Your boss, do you had some friction in the last years how these plans were supposed to be treated? Because from De Gione it was quite clear at the beginning that he would say it's sufficient that the money is flowing out as soon as possible. We don't have a close look at it anyway. No, I think he was rather talking about money flowing quickly, and this is important. We have to cope with the crisis. That has to be done now and not in 10 years. We were talking about the plans initially. The regulation has been taking some time, and now the implementation of plan and the development of the plans as well. So speed is certainly an element here, but there were no conflicts, not based on individual plans or elements that had to be toned down or something. Well, luckily, these were going hand in hand here. The criteria had to be fulfilled. Equal treatment was necessary. The member states had to be treated in a way that there was really a level playing field for all parties involved, and the criteria had to be analyzed in detail. So I thought this was really indicative of a good flowing process. There were no debates where commissioners were trying to defend their own respective member states in any way. Really not, because at the end of the day, no. So commissioners are supposed to not to act as representatives of their countries in the Commission, and we do know that commissioners actually do exactly that. But there might be expressions once in a while reflecting possibly what's being thought about in one member country or another. But in this case, and I was there for these debates, this was not the case. How much are you looking forward to a moment where you can draw the final line and get back to really important matters? What are the really important matters for you? Well, trying to get back what the Commission had envisaged a while ago, but it is not the plan of the Commission to cope with Corona mainly and to have recovery programs being developed. And now at a point where they have a huge budget, we'll see how this will be evolving, with whether this is really unique at the end of the day, but this is these are questions turning towards the future. But this has been dominating your work, so I would be interested in how far we have reached a point where you can say, okay, we can now draw a final line here, or with the controls and the milestones and everything to be observed will be dominating the work in the upcoming years. And one day when you will wonder what the Commission has been done, and at the end, at the beginning and at the end, it will be next generation EU. Well, this will be an important point for the whole mandate, this is for sure. But what we've been doing quite nicely as well, there's the connection to get out of the crisis, to beat Corona, has been connected with digitization and with the priorities that have been brought up beforehand. Digitization, Green Deal, sustainability. These aspects, these priorities have been brought up and connected to these recovery and resolution, and we have even boosted these points. So now, thanks to the recovery facility, we have more possibilities, especially for the transition to be guided and accelerated as well in both directions. And these were the fundamental themes that we had been talking about initially in the person of our president. And I think this is an opportunity now. And this would be leading us to the next major package of the Commission on the 13th of July, the Climate Protection Fit for 55 is the name of the package. I think there's 12 points on the whole that are being announced there. Are you optimistic here as well that this will allow us to give an opportunity to have really the 55% of reduction until 2030? Well, this is a matter of credibility as well. If you determine such an objective of 55%, well, the means and ways have to be opened up to be able to reach it. If we withdraw from that now and saying, well, many measures will be sufficient as well to get on that path, well, that will not be enough. 55 have been indicated. The heads of government and states have determined this, and we have to deliver the building blocks to get there. Building blocks are really heavy. If they fall on your feet, they will hurt you, but they will hurt in any way. But we have brought up this objective. Now I have to see how we can advance with this objective and this mixture between individual packages here. There's different aspects being talked about. We try to have a perfect mix here between regulation, objectives, measures in the areas of energy efficiency, with taxes as well to reach these 55%. This is a legislative project. This will take some time for Parliament, and we'll see what will be happening here. Mr. Hager, thank you very much for this discussion. Before we go into this direction, climate protection, I would like to indicate 2 upcoming events that will take place here on short notice from now on. One tonight at 7 p.m., Germany before the election. And tomorrow at 1 p.m., Crisis Talk, the health data space between the competing priorities of medical care, academic freedom, and data security. Thank you very much for being with us today, listening to our debate. It's raining outside here. Maybe you have better weather, but have a great day in any case. Thank you and goodbye.